The shocking choice of the heiress. What she'll never reveal until midnight. The chandelier flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the marble floor of the grand estate. Outside, thunder rumbled like an angry beast. Inside, every heartbeat echoed in the silence that enveloped the room. All eyes were on Vesper, the heiress whose wealth was rivaled only by her mystery. She stood at the center, gripping a glass of crimson wine like it was her lifeline. What would she do? What dark secret was she holding back? A soft gasp escaped the crowd as Vesper looked at the ornate clock on the wall. Midnight was fast approaching. Just moments before, whispers filled the room like a thick fog. They spoke of her late father's untimely death, of treasures hidden under the estate, and of a curse that plagued every generation of her family. People said she could see things, a cursed vision that whispered the fate of souls. Were those rumors or truth? She seemed both terrified and intrigued by the thought. As the clock ticked lethargically toward the witching hour, Vesper's hands trembled. Eyes fixed on her, the guests leaned in closer, anticipation buzzing in the air. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted the heavy atmosphere. The doors to the ballroom burst open. A gust of wind swept in, bringing a flurry of whispers and gasps. It was as if the night itself was warning them. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The air thickened with pressure, and Vesper's breath quickened. She glanced around, her heart pounding in her chest. What was she hiding? The almost tangible tension soared as she opened her mouth. Would she tell her secret? The guests waited with bated breath, eyes wide, hoping for a hint of what lay beneath her calm facade. Then, she took a step forward, heart racing, and whispered something so low only a few could catch it. By midnight, everything changes. The clock chimed ominously, the sound reverberating within them, igniting a wave of fear. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, plunging the room into a shroud of darkness. Gasps erupted, and her lips curled into a painful smile, as if she expected this very moment. What choice would she make? The fate of her family, her fortune, and perhaps even a curse older than time itself rested on the balance. And just like that, when everyone thought the truth would finally unravel, a cold wave swept through the room, snuffing out the flickering candles. No one knew what would happen next, or what Vesper would choose to reveal before the clock struck again. The clock's chime echoed like a death knell, each toll sinking heavy in the chests of the guests. Darkness wrapped them like a shroud, filled with whispers, flutters of panic, and the soft rustling of dresses against the polished floor. Vesper stood still, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, the taste of iron and fear thick in her throat. She could feel their eyes on her, digging deep, searching for answers. What had she been so desperate to share? Seconds turned into an eternity when, with a snap, the lights flickered back to life. But it was not the same ballroom that greeted them. Shadowy figures darted across the walls, twisting the mundane into something sinister. The eyes of her guests had transformed, horror and curiosity intertwined as they watched her, waiting. Vesper tore her gaze from the onlookers and glanced back at the clock. It was still ticking down, but it felt like time had slowed to a crawl as her mind raced through memories of her father. The man who had built this empire not just with money, but with secrets, and now she carried the heaviest one of all. The woman stepped forward, her voice breaking through the tension. "Why won't you tell us, Vesper?" It was Adelaide, her closest friend, yet the one with a penchant for the macabre. "Is this about the will? The curse? Just say it." "Enough." Vesper's voice pierced the air, sharp with desperation. She stepped back, feeling the cool marble against her spine. "You think you want to know my secret, but it's not just mine. It will change everything for all of you." A shudder went through the crowd. Faces went pale. They were no longer just guests at a party. They were pawns in a game woven with curses and long-lost fortunes. They exchanged glances, the once eager whispers dwindling into an anxious hush. The clock struck 11, and every shiver of anticipation escalated. Vesper tried to squeeze the dread from her hands, hoping to silence the growing darkness inside her. There are things beneath this estate, things my father wanted to protect us from. Things? What things? A voice shouted from the back. A thin man, his eyes gleaming with intrigue. If there's treasure, we want it. What are you afraid of? The pulse of horror surged within her. Not all treasures are gold, and not all secrets are worth unearthing. She felt hollow, a warning echoing in her chest. But the time for hiding has passed. As if summoned by her words, the winds outside howled once more, rattling the windows. The chandelier above swayed, and Vesper watched as strands of the ceiling's delicate lace began to shake. You don't understand, she continued, voice quivering. If I unveil the truth, it will unleash something we aren't prepared to face. The curse, it's darker than you think. The room hung heavy with her admission, tension filling the air like smoke. A crack deep and ominous sounded from the far corner of the ballroom, causing everyone to jump. A trapdoor beneath the polished surface creaked open, revealing a gaping mouth of darkness. Gasps trembled through the crowd. Is that? Adelaide fearfully gasped, clutching her necklace. What lies below? Vesper opened her mouth, but the words failed her, replaced by a cold lump of dread. The hands inside her mind tightened, forcing her into a corner. She was standing on the precipice of revelation, ready to tumble into chaos. I don't know what's going to happen next, Vesper whispered, locking eyes with her closest friend. But whatever comes, it can't be undone. As the crowd held its breath, the echoes of moans floated up from the abyss, chilling the air. The clock ticked ominously toward midnight, a final warning as shadows loomed larger with each passing second. The time would soon arrive where she had no choice. Would she let them in on the secrets of her lineage, or would she protect them from the darkness that awaited? The answer loomed like the storm outside, dark and inevitable, and time was running out. As the final echo of the clock faded into a heavy silence, Vesper felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. The air was thick and sticky with uncertainty, every breath a struggle. She could see the gathering storm reflected in their faces, fear creeping in like a cold mist, wrapping them tighter around the pulse of dread that pounded in her chest. What lies below? Adelaide pressed again, the fear in her voice transforming into something sharper, more demanding. Vesper clenched her fists, grasping for clarity. She needed to choose her words carefully. She was about to unravel a thread that could pull the entire tapestry apart. It's not treasure you want, it's a curse, she managed, voice trembling beneath the weight of the truth. Something my father tried to bury. And now she paused, the implications heavy as the trapdoor yawned like a hungry beast. With a sudden rush, the guests surged toward the gaping darkness. The fear of the unknown gripped them, and Vesper could see that their curiosity was turning to fanaticism. The thought of something hidden, dangerous, forbidden set their hearts racing. Vesper felt the heat of the moment gripping her. Stop! She shouted, panic surging. You don't even know what you're asking for. But her words fell flat, drowned by the rising excitement of the crowd. They were teetering on the edge, drawn to the abyss as moths to a flame. A bulky man pushed past Adelaide, defiance in his eyes. We deserve to know. All your father's secrets, they're ours now. What if it's worse than we fear? A woman cried, her voice cracking. Sometimes, Vesper said, eyes flickering towards the trapdoor, some things are meant to stay hidden. What we unearth could destroy us. It's not just a simple curse, it's bound to blood and power. And once unleashed, it can't be controlled. The clock began to toll again, each chime tearing through the tension, slicing the mounting panic into jagged pieces. It was nearly midnight. In the shadows below, something stirred. A low rumble echoed as if the earth itself was groaning, warning them of what lay below. The floors trembled slightly, and the memories of her father's ramblings about ancient rites and sorrows flashed in Vesper's mind, chilling her soul. Adelaide's hand clasped Vesper's arm, urging, pleading. What did you mean by bound to blood? You have to tell us now. Vesper's heart raced. Her deepest, darkest fear was manifesting, revealing the connection her family shared with the very entity they feared the most. The screams of her ancestors echoed, warning against the very fate she now faced. What if she hesitated? What if revealing the truth condemns us all? My father believed that lifting the veil would awaken something sinister, something that craves to be free. Then let it free, shouted the man, eyes wild. Let it come. We can handle it together. Vesper felt the weight of that thought crush her. Her mind raced. Would sharing what she knew truly unify them against the terror waiting to pounce, or would it fracture them, allowing the dark hunger below to consume them whole? Can't you feel it? She wanted to scream. The shadows feeding off your fear? If you're set on this path, there's no turning back. Beneath them, the trapdoor creaked wider, a whispering promise clawing its way to the surface. The air grew colder, and with an instinctual recoil, Vesper could feel the lure of that darkness beckoning her. It was as if the very shadows were singing her name. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated, and the lights flickered again, plunging the ballroom into semi-darkness. Shadows elongated and twisted, taking shapes that struck terror into the hearts of those present. Panicked chatter erupted. Some began retreating in fear while others still leaned forward, drawn deeper into the suspense. Vesper. Adelaide's voice cut through the chaos. You have to make a choice. Now. As the clock ticked its final countdown, Vesper knew that in the face of overwhelming dread, she must make a choice that would seal their fates. Would she draw back the curtain and unleash the truth, or would she shield them from the darkness that awaited, even if it meant bearing that weight alone? As the midnight hour approached, Vesper's heart pounded in equal parts fear and resolve. She took a breath and opened her mouth to speak, but as the final stroke of the clock rang out, a blood-curdling wail erupted from the trapdoor below. What emerged would shape her fate forever, and the choice she made would ignite a fire that could consume them all. The wail cut through the room like a jagged knife, slicing through the tension, leaving an echo of terror in its wake. Vesper's heart raced, each frantic beat drumming against her ribcage, a grim reminder of mortality. The crowd froze, fear solidifying their features into masks of shock and horror. Then, from the depths of the trapdoor, an unmistakable darkness seeped upward, curling and twisting, as if alive, glistening like oil under the shimmering chandelier light. Gasps filled the room. Some swallowed down screams, while others stood motionless, transfixed by the horror uncoiling before them. Vesper's stomach turned. We have to get out of here, she shouted, her voice strained. But as she turned to make her way toward the exit, she caught a glimpse of the bulky man from before, his face contorted with desire and fear, eyes fixed on the dark mist rising. For generations, we were kept in the dark, he shouted over the chaos. Whatever that is, it's ours to confront. Panic surged through Vesper. Was it her place to protect them, or to let them face the consequences of their own choices? The tension wrapped around her like a vice. The shadows pulsed, drawing nearer, hungry, craving interaction, as if understanding the stakes of their longing. No, Vesper yelled, desperation clawing at her throat. It doesn't care about justice or understanding. It wants something from us, our fears, our pain. As if to punctuate her warning, a shadowy tendril shot forth from the trapdoor's edge, extended like a greedy hand, aiming for the audience. Murmurs of dread rippled through the guests. Some stumbled back, others advanced forward, mesmerized. The air went thick with impending doom, heavy and suffocating. Vesper, help him, Adelaide cried, pointing to the man who had boldly taken a step closer. He's going to get himself killed. The tableau of humanity hung in a fragile balance. Time felt warped, pressure pressed down, urging a split-second decision. Panic clawed at Vesper's mind, rattling her resolve. I can't trust it, she shrieked, but the words escaped her as quickly as the ground beneath shifted. Then she felt it, an urgent presence, a whisper directly into her mind. Embrace the darkness, it soothed. You know the truth. Isn't that what you want? A fist of icy dread wrapped around her heart. It was an invitation one she dare not consider. But there it was, tugging at her sense of identity, exposing the truth beneath her fear. Suddenly, the darkness rippled wildly. Now silhouetted forms began to emerge. Faces, twisted and familiar, haunted her view. Ancestors she'd never known, trapped and eager for release. Their eyes locked onto her, begging for salvation, tearing at the fabric of her resolve.
Stop it!
Vesper cried, clutching her head as voices erupted, her family as secrets spilling out with ferocity.
You don't understand,
she screamed, but the dark energy and the promise of revelations were overwhelming. The bulky man lunged into the mist. I'm not afraid, he yelled, his voice swallowed by the shadows. It engulfed him, pulling him down into the depths with a final, haunting scream. Everything shook. The chandelier trembled, casting a fractured light over the crowd, now unraveled by fear and dread. People stumbled back, their faces pale as realization sank in. The truth was more terrifying than they could ever imagine. Within her, doubt warred with instinct. Should she give in, unveil the darkness that loomed beneath, or grip the truth close and shield them all from the clutches of despair? As shadows devoured the remnants of the man's scream, Vesper felt a seismic shift. Whatever happens next, she whispered to herself, trembling, will change us forever. Just then, a deafening crack split the air as the trapdoor exploded open, the dark haze surging violently upward like a dark tidal wave crashing against them. Vesper! Adelaide's voice broke through, a desperate plea, but it was too late. Time stopped as the shadows unfurled, ready to unveil the truth, ready to reveal what lay waiting beneath the surface. Would the truths that emerged bring liberation, or would they seal their fates in anguish? In the eye of the storm, Vesper stood, her choice looming larger than ever. The wave of darkness crashed into the crowd, swallowing them in a torrent of chaos and confusion. Vesper felt the icy fingers of the shadows wrap around her, clenching tighter until she could hardly breathe. The world around her faded as the fear took root, threatening to choke her spirit entirely. Adelaide! She screamed, but the sound felt lost in a vortex of panic. Her best friend's silhouette disappeared in the dark, swept away by the force that twisted through the room. Vesper fought against the crushing sensation, her thoughts racing like wild horses. She couldn't let it consume her. She couldn't let it take anyone else. In that moment, she knew she had to act. Summoning every ounce of strength, she pulled at the threads of her will, feeling their sharpness ignite within her. I am not afraid, she shouted defiantly, and the very air seemed to vibrate with her declaration. The shadows hesitated, a momentary flicker of indecision brushing against the oppressive weight. Then the darkness surged again, more voracious than before, whispering cold secrets and broken promises. You can't escape your past, it hissed, wrapping around her like a noose. Those familiar faces emerged once again, eyes wide with despair. Vesper stumbled back, dread clawing at her. Their longing for release was nearly palpable, a suffocating weight that dragged her deeper into the shadows. What had they endured? What had they sacrificed? Get out, run! A man shouted, piercing through the din of anguish and fear. A few guests scrambled toward the exit, a tide of movement that somehow felt futile against the malevolent force surrounding them, but Vesper held her ground, sweat prickling on her skin. She felt a flicker of hope rising inside her, a memory of something warmer, brighter. This isn't how it ends, she yelled, gripping the edges of her dress like it anchored her. Embrace the darkness, the whisper slithered through her mind, taunting her fears. What if she succumbed? The lure of understanding, of connection? Enough, she shouted, closing her eyes against the enticing call. I choose to fight. In a blinding moment, the shadows recoiled, as if her confidence burned them. Vesper expanded that light within her, commanding it to surge. She envisioned reaching back across generations, grasping the hands of her ancestors, refusing to be the next victim of their sorrow. The room trembled, the shadows coiling tighter, but Vesper's light lit up the dimness, illuminating the faces that had haunted her. Their expressions shifted from despair to surprise. In that fleeting connection, she understood something vital. They had longed for someone to break the cycle of pain and deceit. "I am not just a reflection of your mistakes," she cried, her voice gaining strength. She surged forward, feeling the tendrils of darkness unraveling as her determination swelled, a spark igniting from deep within. Suddenly, a fierce wind roared through the room, pulling away the shadows like a storm clearing. The guests, still frozen in fear, started to awaken from their stupor, their eyes wide. "Help her!" A trembling voice broke through. "We need to stand together." Those who had cowered closer in the shadows surged forward, gathering behind Vesper, their hearts aligned in defiance against the darkness. They were no longer isolated. They had formed a united front, and in doing so, the weight of fear began to lift. But just then, the ground shook violently, splitting open beneath them. A chasm yawned wide, blacker than night, and in it stirred something ancient, something more dangerous than they could have imagined. Vesper felt the frigid breath of terror wafting from the abyss. Was this what she had awakened? Or was it the true enemy lurking, waiting for the perfect moment to strike?
Hold on,
she yelled, as the world began to tilt. "We can't let it pull us down. Not now. Not ever." As shadows and whispers surged around them, she wondered if any power could save them from this fate. What fate awaited them in the depths of that darkness? And would their newfound unity be strong enough to confront whatever horrors lay beneath? Vesper's heart pounded like a drum as the chasm opened wider, a gaping maw ready to swallow everything in sight. Under her feet, the ground groaned, fissures spiderwebbed outward, swallowing fragments of the past, the laughter, the warmth, and the familiar faces that had shared that night with her. Panic tightened its grip once more. "We have to help each other," she screamed, urgency impelling her voice. But the words felt feeble as screams echoed from the abyss, voices she recognized familiar, yet twisted. "Let her go. She's dangerous." A voice yelled, lost in the thickening mist. "That's not true," Vesper protested, feeling the fibers of doubt tugging at her soul. "I'm fighting for all of us." The crowd began to waver, hesitation creeping onto their faces as silence fell for the briefest moment. The whispers quieted, replaced by the eerie sound of the earth's roar. Shadows danced on the edges of vision, a swirling tempest of uncertainty.
please.
She looked each of them in the eye, pleading for faith. "Stand with me. We have the strength to change this." Some took a hesitant step forward, their faces a mixture of skepticism and hope. But others hung back, shrouded in fear. The darkness slithered closer, seeking to exploit their uncertainty. It felt alive, a beast hungry for despair. Suddenly, from the depths of the chasm, something stirred. A low growl reverberated, sending tremors through the ground. An ancient presence was mounting an assault against their unity of force far stronger than anything Vesper had anticipated.
No.
"We can do this," she shouted over the growl, determination igniting within her anew. She drew on the light, the very essence that flickered in each of their hearts. "Look inside. We each have that light." The channel of energy flickered between them, the guests who dared to believe, a tangible thread of warmth blossoming. Vesper felt the connection surge around her, stronger than chains, pulsing with the rhythm of defiance. "Together," Vesper roared, "we can face whatever that is." At her command, they formed a circle of strength, their hands clasped, fingers entwined. The light glowed brighter, pushing back the gloom, a reminder of their resolve. But with it rose the growl, deeper, more furious. The chasm quaked, as if in response to their newfound strength. A wave of darkness shot up, surging toward them, threatening to engulf their flickering hope. "What if it's too late?" A voice rang out, fear lacing each word. "What if we can't hold it back?" And that doubt hung in the air like a heavy cloud, dimming the light that Vesper had summoned. She felt the edges of despair clawing at her again.
No.
We can't let it take us.
Not now.
Yet just as those words escaped her lips, a shadow broke from the chasm of figure, vague and imposing, looming over them with outstretched hands. It froze in midair, as if waiting for the inevitable moment to tip the scales. Vesper's breath quickened. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, her voice tremoring with fierce defiance. The figure's eyes pierced her soul, and with a voice like a creeping fog, it whispered, "Your sacrifice, or your darkness. Choose." That single word echoed like a clock chiming midnight, filling her with dread. The choice hung in the air, tangible and daunting. Members of the group began to shake, fear radiating and their grasp on one another faltering. "Don't choose fear," Vesper urged, but inside, she could feel the tightening knot of uncertainty. What if she was wrong? What if fighting this darkness meant losing everything they'd ever built? What if it truly required a sacrifice? She had to make a decision. She could feel the weight of the rune bearing down on her. The shadows curled closer, beckoning for her to relent. "Stand strong," Vesper commanded, but quietly, her heart trembled. What was it she was truly willing to sacrifice? The darkness bared down heavier now, and the figure leaned forward, its smile menacing. "Make your choice, Vesper." As the shadows coiled tighter around her, she understood the enormity of what lay ahead. Could she face the ultimate battle against the darkness within herself? And would the power of their unity endure against the terrifying choice before them? Vesper's heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out all rational thought. She looked around, desperate for support, but the faces of her friends swirled like phantoms, fears etched deep in their features. The specter above them loomed larger, its eyes like deep, black wells, hollow and consuming. The chasm beneath them roared with rage, and the shadows leapt like serpents, entwining around feet and ankles, a binding force meant to draw them into the darkness. Vesper felt their grasp tightening. It wasn't just her fear anymore. It was palpable in the air, merging with the dread of those who had once stood resolutely at her side. "No," she whimpered, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "Don't let it take you. We can fight it." "Fight what?" a voice shouted back, breaking through the swirling mist. A man in the back, usually full of confidence, wavered now. "You don't even know what you're asking us to do. We could lose everything." Cold sweat slid down her spine as the weight of his words seeped into her bones. What was she asking? To hold on to what could potentially slip away? There was a deeper current beneath the surface of their gathering, a clash of survival instincts against a desperate hope. "Let go of your fear," Vesper called out again. "Remember what we've fought for." But the shadows were insidious, snaking deeper into their hearts, sowing seeds of doubt with every heartbeat. She felt the warmth of the energy they'd generated start to flicker, stifled by anxiety. "Make your choice, Vesper," the figure reiterated, voice oozing malice. The way it pronounced her name sent chills prickling along her skin. Sacrifice or darkness? What darkness awaited them if she relinquished control? Images flared in her mind, faces of friends lost, dreams shattered, laughter buried under despair. Each image felt like a weight pressing down, a reminder of each moment that had led them to this brink. Suddenly, she remembered their laughter. The way they had grinned during that first bonfire under a cobalt sky, hands clasped, hope soaring high. They had made promises with every flame that licked at the night. They had vowed to protect one another against the dark. Remember who we are," Vesper cried, confronting the darkness with the last shred of her conviction. She focused on the bond they shared, each flicker of light rekindling hope. And in that moment, the group stirred, their fingers tightening in response. She caught fleeting glimpses of defiance and determination, filling their eyes again. Light erupted, banishing some of the encroaching shadows, revealing the grotesque figure with its predatory grin. The entity hissed, confusion rippling through it. Did it not expect resistance? "Together," Vesper shouted again, igniting the spark in each heart surrounding her. But just as the tide began to turn, an ear-splitting roar echoed from the chasm, raw, furious, and desperate. The darkness surged, crashing over them like a tidal wave, nearly relenting the strengthened light. Shadows clawed fiercely, creeping into Vesper's mind, twisting her thoughts into a chaotic whirlwind. What if it is too late? A soft voice whispered at the back of her mind. The sinister suggestion gripped her heart, forcing her to confront the terrifying reality of the situation laid bare. "Are you willing to fight for your freedom?" the figure asked, each syllable dripping with contempt. "Your friends will need to make a sacrifice if they hope to escape." Vesper's throat tightened. She looked around, seeing faces filled with skepticism, each one flickering between the light and shadow. "Is my life worth all of theirs?" she thought, the burden of the choice squeezing her lungs. "Now, Vesper," the figure whispered, malicious and seductive. "Choose." She felt a raw scream clawing at her throat, but she couldn't let a single note escape. Would she condemn them all to save herself? This was the moment, her agonizing split second to either condemn or liberate. The air crackled, weighty with tension. What darkness would swallow them whole if she faltered, as the shadows advanced? Vesper faced her fears with trembling resolve. Was there even a choice at all? An unexpected shimmer in her heart surged the light within, igniting a fiery promise against the encroaching void. But how far would she go to keep that promise intact? The chamber filled with anticipation. The crowd held its breath. And then it happened. A blinding flash split the darkness. What had she unleashed? The answer loomed perilously close. The blinding flash tore through the darkness like a thunderbolt, illuminating the shadows in a burst of fierce brilliance. Vesper squinted against the glare, her heart racing in a blend of fear and exhilaration. The moment stretched and twisted, and the shadows groaned, recoiling as if stung. "Hold on," she shouted, her voice breaking through the shockwave of light. Each friend's face shimmered in the glow, their silhouettes stark against the flickering radiance. Hope surged in her chest, but it was chased by a sickening dread. Would the light hold? Or was this merely a brief flicker before an all-consuming darkness? As the brilliance waned, Vesper's mind raced. What had she unleashed? The shadows writhed, hissing in furious dismay. A flurry of thoughts crashed in, each vying for her attention. "Protect them," a voice whispered deep inside her. "You're their only hope." "Will it cost you?" another voice countered, sharper than ice. "Stop it. I can't lose them," she pleaded, casting a glance around. They were stampeded with fear, but still clinging to the fragile hope she had rekindled. The figure above them, furious and defiant, swirled like a storm. "Your light is weak. You think this will save you?" It spat, its voice like gravel scraping against bare skin. A wave of panic washed over her. What if it isn't enough? Just then, a revelation slammed into her, a choice hidden beneath the chaos. "You all have power," she thought, urgency lighting the spark in her chest. "We can do this together." But the shadows, fueled by their collective doubts, surged forward, pulling her friends toward the edge of the chasm.
"No, not now,"
Vesper yelled, stretching out her arms, as if she could physically hold them back. "Vesper," one friend began, the light in their eyes flickering. "Don't say it," she begged, her voice thick with emotion. "We can't divide now. Not like this." Yet she felt the cracks spreading, fissures slicing through unity. The shadows whispered promises of release, tempting her friends with the idea of sacrificing themselves to save the rest. "Remember who we are," she cried again, desperation clawing at her throat. "Our bonds are stronger than this darkness.
Fight back."
But doubt festered, and she could see the internal battle unfolding in their eyes. Would they choose to save themselves, or take a leap into the unknown for their friends? The thought made her stomach twist painfully. Suddenly, an ear-splitting roar blasted through the air, merging with another sharp scream. A friend's voice pierced the tension. Panic flared in her chest. She could feel the darkness creeping closer, every inch of her skin prickling with dread. Then, a figure burst forth into the light, defiant, his face illuminated with resolve. "Vesper, we can't just wait. We need a plan." It was Lucas, his expression fierce, igniting the flicker of hope once more. "Together. We can't let it take us," Vesper shouted, locking her eyes with each of her friends. Fists clenched at their sides, she was aware of the energy pooling between them again, like threads weaving into something stronger than their individual fears. But the specter recoiled, its form blurring and shifting, growing bigger, more monstrous. "You think this is a game? You will pay for your defiance." As the darkness coiled around them, Vesper steadied herself. That intimacy of shared moments surged in her heart, the laughter, the late-night talks, the promises they had made. Suddenly, the shadows hesitated, as if her convictions struck a chord within their twisted essence. Could the light actually disrupt their hold? "Fight for it," Vesper demanded, voice trembling. "We fight or we fall." And just as the weight of the moment bore down heavily against them, a tremor rippled through the ground, as if the very earth trembled beneath the weight of their struggles.
What now?
Fear gripped her heart, an icy hand closing around her, squeezing tightly. Then she realized something was changing. The chasm itself seemed to shift, pulling back for a heartbeat, as if the very darkness feared the light they were wielding together. But would it hold? As Lucas flashed her a look of encouragement, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Would their combined strength be enough to confront this malevolent force? And just like that, the ground buckled beneath them. What was it hiding? Beneath the chaos, a deeper dark beckoned. What lay beneath? Could she keep the light alive long enough to find out? With a jolt, the ground heaved violently, flinging Vesper and her friends off balance. They stumbled, grasping at each other, trying to tether themselves against the unfathomable energy surging from the chasm below. The shadows recoiled, but they didn't retreat. They pulsed with anger and determination, wrapping around the edges of the light, seeking to snuff it out. "Vesper!" someone yelled, and she turned to see Maya, terror etched across her face. "What do we do? This is getting worse." "We hold on," Vesper shouted back, the urgency in her voice slashing through the chaos. But it felt like shouting into a storm. The reality around them warred against her words. Every syllable was swallowed by the howling shadows. "Hold on to what?" Lucas interjected, mouth tight with frustration. "A flicker? We're going to lose everything." The strain of his voice made her heart lurch. But his words struck a chord deep within her.
"No.
We can't think like that. We need to channel our strength." She gritted her teeth, locking her eyes with each friendess, forcing her resolve through. "We are stronger together. We will fight." As if to mock her assertion, the specter let out a roar that echoed like thunder. It grew more monstrous with each pulse of darkness, its features twisted into a grotesque visage, reflecting all their fears back at them. "You think unity will spare you?" it screeched. Vesper swallowed hard, feeling the weight of its challenge. Doubt clawed at her again, but she squeezed her fists tighter. "We will not let you take us." In that moment, she felt something shift within the group. A flicker of uncertainty in each of their eyes transformed to determination. "Together," Maya shouted, and the word rippled through them, each heartbeat cementing their resolve. "We can do this." With that, an electric charge filled the space between them, a current born of unity and hope. Vesper felt it coursing through her veins. She concentrated fiercely, drawing on the echo of their shared memories, the laughter, the dreams, everything they had built together. She would not lose them.
"Now!"
she screamed, and they raised their hands, anchored to one another. The burst of energy surged, radiating from their palms, knitting itself into a beam of light bright and true. The shadows hissed, screeching as the light lashed out, illuminating the depths of the chasm. A moment of clarity flashed, revealing the horrid forms writhing just beneath the surface, grotesque figures of doubt, despair, and fear. It was an abyss of their worst moments, the collective weight of their trauma laid bare.
"Fight it!"
Vesper cried, as the darkness writhed, flinging tendrils toward them, trying to snuff out the glow they had forged. This is our moment. Just as it seemed they were gaining ground, the ground quaked violently again. The chasm shook, and with it, a piece of the ground cracked and fell, exposing an even darker expanse below. Vesper's stomach churned, the sudden drop forcing her to stifle a gasp. Ava. It was Lucas, his voice slicing through the chaos.
Get back.
But she saw that the fragile light was flickering, thin as a spider's thread.
No.
Don't give up, Vesper shouted. We're not finished yet. Yet every moment seemed to stretch, the shadows closing in. The deeper dark beckoned, threatening to swallow them whole. In that split second, Vesper realized the truth holding on wasn't enough. There was a choice to make, a cost. The sensation of her heart racing transformed into a heavy stone resting in her chest, punctuated by the echoes of friends urging her forward. Could she embrace the risk for them? The light shimmered, barely holding, but she knew they had to push harder, to embrace the unknown. Could she do it? Convince herself to delve deeper into the mystery below, and take a leap into the darkness for the sake of her friends? The shadows roared louder, and the choice was near. As the ground rumbled beneath them, she took a deep breath, ready to confront the true darkness. Would she have the bravery to act, even if it meant risking everything? Her hand trembled as she reached toward the void, ready to leap. Vesper's heart raced as she approached the abyss, fear gripping her soul. The energy of her friends swirled around her, a beacon against the rising tide of darkness. This was no longer just about her. It was about them, the bonds they had forged amid laughter and shadows. Together, she shouted, her voice breaking through the din like a lighthouse cutting through a storm at sea. We can face this. I promise. But the shadows roared, a horrific cacophony that shook the foundations of the grand estate. Tendrils of darkness reached for her, curling and twisting, as if they knew her deepest insecurities. Vesper. Lucas's voice cut through the chaos. This is insane. We can't just leap into that. But the strength in his tone was shaky. Doubt ate at everyone, the shadows feeding on it, gritting her teeth. Vesper stepped closer to the edge of the chasm. She couldn't let fear dictate their fate. I refuse to back down. I will not let this darkness take you. The entity looming above them hissed, its eyes swirling with disdain. You think you can fight me? I am the remnants of sorrow and fear. I thrive on your hesitation, your pain. With a deep breath, Vesper remembered every promise she'd made, every moment where they had stood beside one another, weaker than alone but stronger united. She felt a flicker of light within, bolstered by the warmth of her friends, their hope embedded in her heart. Remember who we are, she shouted, drawing from that radiant energy. We are not defined by our past. We are defined by our courage to change it. The room shifted, the shadows flinching at her words. It was as if her determination momentarily blinded the darkness. With a sudden movement, Vesper rushed toward the precipice, adrenaline surging through her veins.
Dive,
she yelled, and in a moment of wild desperation, she leapt, arms extended, ready to embrace the unknown. The void welcomed her, a chilling embrace that threatened to consume everything. But instead of fear, she felt exhilaration, power surging from her heart like fire. Every whisper of anguish woven into the shadows began to unravel. She realized the truth. Her sacrifice didn't mean losing herself. It was about finding strength in vulnerability, finding courage in letting go. Suddenly, she crashed into an ethereal landscape, a swirling mix of memories and emotions. She was surrounded by phantoms, her ancestors, lost souls trapped in shadows, faces twisted in sorrow. Help us, they cried, their voices a chorus of grief as they reached for her. Release your hold on us, Vesper shouted, her voice echoing in the silence. I will not allow fear to chain us. Your pain will not be my burden. Light erupted from her, a radiant force sparked by defiance. The shadows recoiled, dark edges fading as the essence of their despair was woven into the brilliance surrounding her. And then she felt them, her friends, diving in after her. embracing the unknown alongside her, refusing to let her face the darkness alone. The collective light they had forged engulfed the space, illuminating everything and cutting through the tentacles of fear. Together, Lucas roared, gripping her hand. "We've got you." With that, they formed a circle, light bursting from their joined hands, brighter than she had ever thought possible. The screams of terror turned to gasps of awe as the shadows screamed and writhed, caught in a writhing storm of light. "That's it," Vesper cried, eyes wide. "Together, we are unstoppable." The dark figure screeched, thrashing in the light's embrace. In that moment, Vesper understood the darkness was simply a reflection of their fears. As long as they believed in each other, they could vanquish it. Light surged, pushing the darkness back until, with one final burst of power, the abyss imploded into a dazzling array of colors. The echoes of despair faded, and with it, the oppressive weight of uncertainty lifted. After what felt like an eternity, the room was filled with warmth, once again illuminated by the chandelier. They stood together, breaths heavy but unified, looking at each other with disbelief.
"We did it,"
Maya whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Vesper took a moment to catch her breath, the adrenaline slowly leaving her. This was their rebirth. As the truth settled in, Vesper turned to her friends, the gravity of the moment grounding her. "This is how we break the cycle. This is a new beginning." The crowd erupted into jubilant cries, hugs surged through them, laughter mixed with tears. They were free. Stepping outside, they were greeted by the storm having subsided, the chilly night air soothing against their flushed cheeks. The moon hung high, bright in the sky, offering promises of hope. Vesper felt a weight lift from her shoulders, no longer burdened by fears, secrets, or lineage. This fortune was new, one not based on gold or curse, but on the bonds forged in darkness. "Are you ready?" she asked her friends, a smile spreading across her face. They nodded, and as they walked away from the estate, each whispering dreams of what would come next, Vesper knew one thing for sure: together they could face anything life threw their way. They stepped into their new dawn, hands clasped, hearts alive. Now, before the end, listen up. You need to subscribe now. Hit that button immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive story. Smash the like button now, it feeds the algorithm and helps us bring you even more wild tales. Flood the comment section with your reactions. What did you think of Vesper's journey? And don't you dare wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support. We're in this together.